It is November 14th, 2022. It is 6 p.m. We're on the second floor of City Hall for the Common Council meeting. Media has been notified. Clerk, please take the roll call.
David Holt.
Here.
Stephen Jopek.
Here.
Eileen Daniel.
Here.
Carrie Michalowski.
Here.
Gerald Anderson. Here. Thomas Barnett.
Here.
Tom Kelly.
Here.
Leanne Felton.
Here.
Chris Hannes.
Here. We do have quorum. Please stand for the pledge. Okay, moving on to public comment. Stephen? Yes.
Just wanted to speak in support of two items on tonight's agenda. One is the proposal or the hearing that you're going to have to vacate the property at the intersection of Rake and Marshall. And also, I wanted to speak in support of the purchase of the Badger books for e-polling at the elections. I think that would be a very wise investment for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
I'm going to remind you, and Steve, please state your name and address.
I was going to do that.
Yeah, well, you're...
Stephen also lives at 604 Reich Street. Tom Giroux, I live at 604 Reich Street, so we live adjacent to the abandonment that's on the agenda, and I would also support that abandonment of Reich Street. And then on the Badger poll books, I'm really excited by this opportunity. It will really save a lot of work on the part of your poll workers. I've been doing this for, I think this is the third year, and the longest I've had to stay to close out our books has been 11:30 at night. So that's from 6 in the morning until 11:30 at night. And these Badger books they only do the poll books. They don't do the voting in the machines. That's done separately. All it does is manage the poll books. It will make balancing our poll books a breeze, and we won't be sitting there 11:30 at night trying to reconcile poll books. So I'd very much appreciate the city making that spending change.
Added to our general manager.
Thank you, Tom. Mr. Bill Liebert?
Hi, thank you. Council members and Stephen, and the clerk knows this because I dropped this off. I handed him a set of documents of just points of communication that I've made this year in regards to my situation with my house on Highview Parkway that is in a bit of exterior need of repair. And I know that we've had some staffing turnovers, both leaving and coming in. So I'm sharing these documents that are not all the way up to the current date, but they relate to explaining what I mentioned in a public comment the last time I was in this building was before the Plan Commission. And I brought it to their attention of just my reality of life going through getting sick in December of last year. I was told by a nurse at the hospital I was the only 50-year-old person that survived COVID for 2 months prior to me being there and a month after. And my doctor has told me that I'm facing a full recovery, but I should expect upwards of a year or more to get everything back in order. I don't use things as a crutch. I don't use things as an excuse. But I will tell you, I have been struggling with focus for the whole year. So these documents that I want you to read, they should be in your mailbox hopefully tomorrow, is just a breakdown of some communication that I've put forth to the city in regards to my 2022 movement to accomplish the goal of getting my house finished to satisfy the ordinance language. I'm a huge believer in communication, but these communications that I sent out under the current staffing apparently is not adequate, but at every point of communication that I put out, I had always said, if anybody has any questions or concerns, to please contact me. I'm not somebody that anyone has to avoid. I'm a very cordial, I mean, even Stephen referenced it in your October council meeting where you held a motion to, I'm not sure what that actual motion was for Stephen. I think I have an understanding of it, but I don't really understand what that is. I've been in touch with the enforcement officer, Dave Melvin, and I have been sending out emails, especially in the last week, quite a few, based on a conversation I had with Dave about just, it's not that when I set up an appointment, but when I have an appointment with a contractor to just notify the city. And so I've had a fair amount of those start up. In fact, I've got one contract that I just sent out to satisfy one item that Dave brought up just 3 weeks ago. Today I just met with a roofing contractor who I'm most likely going to hire the moment I get a proposal. We're looking at a couple options, but that's probably going to happen very soon. I met with a window company only so that I have that still in the realm of consideration, but that's not really part of the issue. It's just something I'm trying to see if I can still work that into my budget. So why I'm here today is to just come before the people of the community. This is an embarrassing situation for me. I'm an architectural designer, so for me to be in this position is kind of a unique sort of a thing, but I tell people that cobbler's children wear no shoes. So I'm making motion to do this. One thing I did mention to Dave Melvin on a phone call with him, and I don't have that in these notes that I'm sharing with you, but I intend to discuss this hopefully with Stephen, maybe by a phone call or some correspondence before next week, is that I started to put into motion this summer before I had contact from Dave in October. I had started to put into motion with my clients, all of my business clients as a sole proprietor, and I put everybody into an awareness of what was going on in my reality. And I don't mean to go long, so I'm about done. I gave every one of my clients the opportunity to get out of their contract, and I would issue back all the dollars that I currently have on account that I have not rendered, and it came with a cover statement of just letting them know my struggles for this year, and that I, out of my own due diligence, felt that that was something I needed to do. So the two clients that were the most furthest out from my time that I was going to be able to start, so meaning the most current people that hired a contract, those two clients took me up on the offer, and I issued back those payments. And I was somewhat happy that happened. I never like losing a project, but I was somewhat happy because now I could narrow down on the projects that I've had on my plate for 2 and 3 years, going. So, and I've reached out to those clients to confirm a second time, and they're all willing to wait and be patient until I get my ducks in a row with my house. So I'm here in public, in front of community, in front of the council. I know the realm of where we're at. I understand what an aspect of, I think, what Steve asked the council for. The information I shared with you is just so that you can see some aspect that I was making an effort to keep the city aware of what I was doing. Being that we lost Robbie and we lost Vrewink, that leaves Mayor Hannes as the only party to these early communications. So the only thing I'm concerned about is I'm always sensitive of not wanting to overwhelm people with too much information. I'm including Dave on my correspondence because he's my representative within the city. But I just lost my train of thought. Chris is the only one that would have had those documents other than Vrewink and Davister. But what I'm concerned about, and this is just something that I want to make sure that I know exactly who I should be talking with, is I don't know that the council got those documents that I had sent in July and September with the updates. Because the meeting that you had, I think, was October 24th, where my name and whatnot was on the agenda. I was never notified that you were having an agenda item on my property. I would have been here to share in very much the same way I am now. I would have been here to participate in that agenda item, but I was never noticed of that. That is concerning to me, but it is not something that right now I am focused on. What I'm asking for is some time to continue the 100% focus I have on getting my contracts to finish my house. I have no interest in going before a judge, no interest. I don't want the city to spend the money on it. I don't want to end up having to pay for that. I'm perfectly comfortable coming to these meetings to give you updates and give community updates. I have no problem doing that. You know, the older I get, the more I realize the more simple you can be in life, the better. So what I've already offered to the city in some of these communications is that although I wish it was handled in a little bit different way, this in the last 4 weeks, I understand it. What I'm asking for is some patience to let me stay that focus. So if I can share any documents with you to show you that I have put my work on pause so that I can focus 100% on this, I'll help you get that understanding. So, and then we'll pick up from there, because what this last 3 weeks has done is it's allowed me to recognize that architecturally I've wanted to do some nice things, but I think I just need to cut those items off and focus on what we have available. I can't get access to Eastern White Cedar shingles. That milling company has been shut down apparently, and they're not producing the material. So I'm now looking at just doing my house nice, but no different than what you see on the 300 block of Highview Parkway. So, and I'm kind of excited and happy about it. So if that helps give you some sense of my motivation, I'm looking to conclude this. But if anybody has any questions, or any council members has any questions,
Unfortunately, with public comment.
No,
you can't-
but please reach out outside of the meeting. I am totally open to talk with any of you about anything that is dealing with my property on Highview Parkway. So thanks for listening.
Cool. Thank you.
Is there any agenda item tonight that would relate to my situation that I should stay here?
Not tonight.
Normally I'd stay for the whole meeting, but I'm pretty tired today, so.
Nope, nothing that involves you.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Austin?
Austin Zarda, 720 Brun Street, City Clerk of the City of Rhinelander. Hello, Rhinelander City Council. I just wanted to have a chance during public comment to review some statistics about last week's general election, now that thankfully it's mostly wrapped up. As you can see in the spreadsheet I provided, the City of Rhinelander saw over 2,896 voters cast their ballot last week. These numbers are, of course, unofficial as we finalize and audit our data. This figure is made up of about 574 folks who voted by mail, 193 who voted early in person at Rhinelander City Hall, and of course those who visited the Hodag Dome on Election Day. This represents 66.43% of all eligible voters in the City of Rhinelander. For those competitive folks in attendance, Assembly District 4, represented by Alderperson Tom Kelly, led a very tight race in voter turnout, just barely beating Alders David Holt and Gerald Anderson for total turnout in their respective districts. So if you want to get out there and try and beat each other for the next one, you got 2 years. We also saw well over 200 voters register to vote at the polls. Many of these folks were simply changing their addresses, but we had tons of new residents to the city, and my personal favorite, countless young people coming out to cast their ballot for the very first time, hopefully developing a strong pride in performing their civic duty. All right, enough numbers for a moment. I most of all wanted to publicly thank all of our amazing poll workers. We have some in attendance today. We had not only for this election, but for all 4 elections that we've conducted in the city of Rhinelander this year, but who's counting? These folks have been dedicating countless hours over the years to make sure our elections are safe, secure, and efficient. Many of these folks have been doing this for as long as I've been alive. I am eternally grateful that we have such a good group of people to help me conduct these elections, especially with it being my first year here. These folks are dedicated, experienced, humorous, and most of all, diligent in making sure our elections run smoothly for all of our citizens. They deserve all of our praise and thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Not seeing none. Moving on to mayor's comments, I would refer to Steve regarding Olson Lane. Mike.
Yeah, there was a question raised about the public hearing with regard to the assessments for Olson Lane, and I addressed that with the citizen who had called about that, and assured her, and I'm assuring anyone, that there will be a public hearing before anyone is actually assessed for any of the services that they may or may not be they're entitled to, but that they may or may not connect to. That's sewer and water. It'll be up to this council to address that issue. We will have a public hearing. That public hearing will be established as soon as we have some real solid working numbers as to what the costs are. So look forward to that, and we'll give everybody in that neighborhood an opportunity to come in and discuss their concerns. So if any of you heard from any of the Olson Street citizens, be assured that there will be a public hearing. They will be given an opportunity to be heard. Is there anything else, Mayor?
Nope.
Okay.
Cool. Moving on to number 6, which is a public hearing. So the first one would be a public hearing on vacating of Reich Street. Does anyone have any comments regarding this? So just to clarify for everyone, it's page 4 in your handout. It's the little bit of land that's between Marshall Street and the Hat Rapids flowage. Guesstimate it's roughly 50 feet by, let's say, 66 feet. Okay. For the second time, does anyone have any comments regarding the public hearing for vacating of Reich Street? Okay. For the third and final time, does anyone have any comments for the vacating of Reich Street? Not seeing none, I would declare the hearing closed. Now we're going on to 6B, which is a hearing for the 2023 annual budget and tax levy. Does anyone have any comments regarding this hearing? Okay. Second time, does anyone have any comments regarding the 2023 annual budget and tax levy? And third and final time, does anyone have any comments or questions regarding the 2023 annual budget and tax levy? Not seeing none, I will close that hearing. Now we're moving on to 6C, which is discuss/approve resolution 20-22-28, adoption of the 2023 budget and approval of tax levy. If anyone would entertain said motion.
Barnett, I make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-28, adoption of the 2023 budget and approval of tax levy.
Is there a second?
Michalowski, second.
Okay, any discussion? Any questions? Mr. Anderson?
I'm a little confused about the library part of it. It looks like the other towns have made a considerable increase in their contribution to the library, and the city gone up $800. I just wonder if I should learn why that is.
Sure. So my limited knowledge was they had a meeting where everyone agreed to the 2% increase, and based on that formula, that's our designated part. But I know Virginia's in the audience if she wants to go into more detail of how that formula breaks down on the district.
Actually, you're doing pretty well. So there is a formula that was agreed upon years ago, and it takes part of the state equalized value of the homes from the last budget year, and then the estimated population, half of that, runs it through a formula for all the townships, and sometimes Rhinelander has a good year and they don't have to pay as much, and sometimes they have a much rougher year and they pay more. So it just kind of depends on where those numbers fall every year. Does that help?
Is the result an adequate budget for the library?
It is what I was appropriated from my district, so it will either be an adequate budget or we will be using our fund balance. That has happened in the past. I'm hoping it's an adequate budget.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions regarding the 2023 budget? Okay, not seeing none. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Tom Kelly, Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to 7A, which is the second reading of some annexation. Would entertain a motion. And there's a handout regarding the parcel location on GIS mapping.
For the sake of discussion, I make a motion to approve ordinance 2022-18 annexation of PE-41-6.
Anderson, second.
Any discussion? Mr. Barnett?
What exactly is this land? What's the history of it? Why are we wanting to annex it?
So this was property that they came to us wanting to annex, and so this isn't something the city initiated, it's the property owner. There is thought for future development, but they haven't revealed that through a permit or development agreement at this point. The parcel is a little unique, and our attorney could go into more detail, but it sounds like this will be connected to the city through the section of road, the right of way in that road, since it's not adjacent to a city parcel. Our understanding is the town of Pelican has no concern of this being part of the city, since it's being initiated by the property owner.
Okay.
Any other questions, or Ms. Daniel?
Looking at the ordinance, it looks as though this is zoned CR1, Conservation and Recreation. Is it improved at all? Is it an improved lot is what I'm asking. So it's not on any city utilities or anything like that, infrastructure?
Currently, no. Utilities end for the hospital, and then the RH 90104-0410 coming down North Shore. That's where utilities end, to my knowledge.
Okay.
Mr. Jopek?
This is mostly just me being new to this. What's the historical precedent? Like you said, it belongs to Pelican. It's unique in the sense that it only kind of gets annexed because it's associated next to this road. Like what's the precedent for something like this happening where we're kind of, latching on to a plot of land?
So, since the property owner is requesting it, not the city, I would say it's pretty common when you look at the map of Rhinelander. We're not a perfect square by any definition. I'm assuming said property owner wants to develop it, and that's why they're looking at this. By being in the city, that opens the door to utilities that they wouldn't have available from outside the city, as well as the fire protection services of having, a full-time staff versus volunteer. But I'll let Steve, if there's any other legal background.
No, I mean, under the statute, you have an absolute right to petition the city to have them annex. The first thing we do is go to the town to see if the town has any objection. Pelican didn't have any objection to us annexing this property. So without them having objection, then it's perfunctory almost for you to agree to bring it into the city. It's adding to your tax base. The other thing that it's doing is it does provide a potential area for development, and understanding that the real connection of this property is to the hospital area. That's really why, when administratively we've looked at this about 2 or 3 months ago and have kind of brought it up to this point. This isn't something that's been in the works for a period of time. I'm sure if interest rates were going down, we might see quicker development, but hopefully it's an ideal place to build homes because of the location of the hospital and the location to the other commercial areas of the city that will be looking for employees. So that's why it's an ideal area. There's really, I guess in the 40-some years I've been doing this, I've never really seen anybody say no to somebody that wanted to be annexed. It's usually the other way around. You're pulling somebody in that doesn't want to be annexed, but for reasons you bring them in.
Yeah, my request just on the historical precedent was just to, you answered the question, but essentially was just to make sure, like, was there ever a time where somebody was in a unique situation, asked for land to be annexed, and that somehow came back to bite the city? And that was what I was clarifying. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, the only time you'll get burned is you took a parcel that's so far from city sewer and water that you have to run city and sewer and water, and if you don't have anybody to tie that cost into, that can become a very, very expensive proposition. That's not the issue here.
Ms. Daniel?
So I'm looking at the map and all the surrounding properties are all Pelican. So are those other properties on city infrastructure?
No.
Or they're not, so
No.
they are on private wells?
Yeah, the city infrastructure is in the road, so they could be if they wanted to annex to the city.
They could.
Yes.
So the infrastructure exists already along, I'm looking at Colburn Road? Is that correct?
Not to my knowledge. So
Well, it's at the hospital is where it's
correct.
at.
Okay, well, this is like a full, I can't, there's no scale on here, but the road along North Shore Drive, certainly, but this is set back quite a ways from North Shore Drive, and it's mostly along Colburn Road and whatever this one is that runs along the back. So if these folks, if they wanted to improve it and they wanted city infrastructure, that's quite a haul to get it over there. Am I wrong?
Yeah, but you have to realize all the land to the north is all part of the city.
So why do we have this weird little island of Pelican?
And is there infrastructure in the land to the north?
No, the infrastructure comes up I don't know what the name of the street is, that's between the Pelican parcels and the hospital. That's where the system is right now.
In that green square?
That's Faust Lake Road.
What is it called?
Faust Lake Road.
Oh, Faust Lake Road.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's where the extension would be. It would be up South Lake Road to this property, if indeed they wanted to bring it in, and they'd have to bring it in at their cost.
It would be at their cost.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to get to. Is this going to cause, because you've got folks from Pelican, obviously these are homes around here. If somebody puts a development in there and then these folks who technically live in Pelican have an issue with it, as some folks sometimes do, because this is currently zoned conservation and recreation, right?
No, that's our zoning. We bring everything into the city with that zoning classification. It's not currently zoned that. We bring it in at that. Everything we bring into the city, we bring in at that zoning. And then we change zoning to whatever you want it to be.
Okay. Here's my question. If the folks who live around this parcel have an issue with a large development going in there, who are they going to come to? Are they going to come to us, or are they going to go to Pelican?
Come to the city, because if it's in the city, the town of Pelican won't have any ability to say yes or no, because it'll be part of the city. So if there's going to be development there, it'll be the city. They would come to the city and say they don't want to see it that way. I don't think we're talking about multifamily. I mean, I think we're talking about single-family dwellings that would fit with the neighborhood. At least those were the early discussions we had.
Okay. I'm just trying to mitigate stuff down the line that's going to come back to bite us, as Mr. Jopek so aptly stated. Thank you.
And Steve, just for more clarification, so tonight we're just looking to annex. In the future, let's say someone does want to build and it has to go to a public hearing at Planning Commission. Even though those properties are not in the city boundary, the ones that are affected, would they be noticed for said hearing if desired? Or required, I should say?
They're within the required distance, so the answer would be yes. They would get notice of the hearing if you're going to rezone the property.
Okay.
That's how it would start.
So the notification doesn't matter if they're in the city or not, just it's based on
If
a
they're
distance
within
from the
the-
parcel.
Yep.
So,
Our ordinance says if you're within so many feet of the property, then you have to get notice.
okay. So then that way at least they're guaranteed to be notified if a development were to happen.
Do we know who the property owner is?
Personally, no. I never met them, never talked to them.
I just know it's a gentleman. I mean, I can look it up
So-
for you. It's public knowledge. I mean, it's public record.
Right. I was just wondering, because if he's talking about development, I'm just wondering if this is someone we've dealt with in the past, or if this is a new person that's going to be wanting to
My
develop.
understanding, and again, please don't quote me, it's an individual that's a professional that owns this land, that thinks that maybe someday it might be good for development. But he's not a developer himself, he's a professional. That's what I was led to believe.
True. And, I mean, hypothetically, they could sell the land tomorrow to someone else and do it. I mean, once it's annexed. Owner is changeable.
Yeah, if you're not going to accept his annexation, you have to have a good reason. I mean, no, and then the biggest thing to know is it's coming in as a recreational parcel, and nothing can be done there other than recreating without going to planning commission and a change of zoning. So you're going to have complete control. And he gets to pay taxes to the city.
Mr. Jopek?
I was just going to clarify that, like, it's not that we oppose it. We're just clarifying to make sure that, again, down the line, this doesn't get somehow kind of goofy. Because if it's just conservation, recreation, why is a person suddenly saying we need to be a part of Rhinelander, so on. So we're just clarifying to make sure that we do our due diligence as city council members.
And to give you some more insight, per the GIS, the current owner per the county's GIS is Brittany and Nathan Kruger.
Kruger, that was the name, yeah.
Per their GIS. Any more discussion? Not seeing none. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Annexation passes. Moving on to 8A, which is meeting minutes from special council of 10/17.
Holt?
Nope, consent agenda is not on this meeting, unfortunately.
Holt, I will make a motion to approve meeting minutes of special common council meeting of 10/17.
Mikulowski, second.
There motion second. Any discussion? Not seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstained? Motion passes. Moving on to 8B, which is Police and Fire Commission of 10/18 minutes. Mr. Anderson?
I move we accept the meeting minutes of the Police and Fire Commission meeting of 10/18.
Mikulowski, second.
Any discussion? Not seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstained? Motion passes. Moving on to 8C, which is the Common Council meeting from 10/24 minutes.
Holt, I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of common council meeting of 10/24.
Barnett, second.
Any discussion? Not seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes. Moving on to 8D, which is the Planning Commission meeting from 11/1. Mr. Anderson?
I move we accept the meeting minutes of the Plan Commission meeting of 11/1.
Barnett, second.
Any discussion? Not seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstain? Minutes approved. Moving on to 8E, which is the Special Council from 11/7 meeting minutes.
Mikulowski, I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes for the special common council meeting on 11/7.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Not seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstain? Meeting minutes pass. Moving on to 8F, which is the meeting minutes from special council meeting of 11/9.
Barnett, I make a motion to approve meeting minutes of special common council meeting of 11/19.
There's
No, 11.
Hold second.
any discussion?
Can we change that?
All those in favor? The what?
Aye.
Not 19.
Okay, you okay amending your motion to 11/9?
Yeah.
Mr. Holt, you okay seconding that
I
amendment?
apologize.
Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion? Not seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes. Moving on to 8G. So the first two is I was been informed that our current Ethic Commission has 4 people that are up for reappointment. These would be the first two. We did get, this is through Facebook, these people showed interest in this term. We do have 2 more openings. One of the current board members do want to be reappointed, which hopefully will come at the next council meeting. Bob Gauthier works at the paper mill. He is, for full disclosure, the brother of Lloyd Gauthier, but per our current ordinance, brother isn't an ethics violation. It'd be spouse or child. I'll let Steve go into more detail if he sees any concern.
No, I've already addressed that issue, and that's not that's not an ethical violation under our current code.
And then the second person who showed interest, there's Michael Dennis, who owns Barely Used, which is a secondhand store, and then he does appraisals in town. Anyone on Planning Commission have seen him multiple times. He does a lot of development and remodeling of property in town. And just to clarify the terms, if you want to talk to that, Steve, a little more.
Yeah, there was confusion on where the terms began and where they ended because the Ethics Committee was created in August, and they thought that their term didn't start till April of the next year, but actually they met in August and they just didn't have any activity. And so that was, although it wasn't a full year, that was their first term. And after that point, of course, terms always go April to April or end of March to April. And so that 1 year counted, and then the next full year. And because of that, we ended up capturing 4 out of 5 of the board members that we probably should have appointed 2 of them last year. But again, the Ethics Committee didn't meet, so it wasn't an issue. They do, I should tell you, have 2 complaints that are been filed, so they will be meeting. And that's why it's essential that we get the Ethics Committee up to date. So there was a debate whether there was 2 seats open, 3 seats open, or 4 seats open, and we determined that there are 4 seats that are open, and that's why we still have 2 more to appoint. We also want, the reason there's 4 is one individual did resign because he moved out of the area. So that's what, otherwise there'd just be 3, and that was what created the 4th position that's open. But we met with the chair of the committee today, so he's aware of what the determination was too. So nobody's caught off guard.
Mr. Anderson?
Do we get a summary of what this committee does and what their jurisdiction is?
Yeah, if you look at the municipal ordinance, the municipal ordinance defines their role very clearly. The Ethics Committee is responsible for looking at any violations of our own ethics code or the state of Wisconsin's ethics code. Basically, the basic issues are conflict of interest. That's the biggest one. In other words, if an individual is involved in a contract whereby they or a immediate family member benefits. So if somebody's son was a contractor and somebody was sitting on the common council and they voted so that their son got a contract, that person may be the most qualified. It's not illegal per se, but it is a conflict of interest, and it's unethical for a person to be involved in that. And I'll use this to answer the question with regard to Bob Gaither, is that if, for example, if the chief was up for some type of quote-unquote violation, of course you couldn't sit on that one, But that's why we have two alternates, so we can always fill in if anybody would recuse themselves. But let's say they didn't recuse themselves and they sat in on a decision-making process about a family member. That would be a violation under the Code of Ethics. Let's say that somebody filled out their annual report on any business interest they had, and they lied on that report. They didn't mention that they're one of the people owning the liquor license for ABC Liquors in downtown, that it's an LLC, and they happen to be the principal, and they didn't put that on their ethics report. That's an ethics violation, and that would be the type of things that would be investigated. Now, what the real genesis of some of this has been is people think there's ethics violations, and they submit those to the board, and then the board has to review and say, no, this isn't an ethical issue, this is misconduct in office, which isn't necessarily an ethics issue. It's a violation of the code, or it's inappropriate behavior in office. For example, if somebody punched out somebody at the police station, one employee punched out another one, that's not an ethics violation, but that's misconduct in office, and that would not be something they would handle. That would be a disciplinary action handled through the human resources or under the union contract in that case. Does that help?
Any other questions, statements? Okay, I would entertain a motion for both or one at a time.
I will make a motion to approve mayoral appointments to the Ethics Committee for Bob Gauthier and Michael Dennis, both terms ending in April of 2026.
Is there a second?
Joe Pack, second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstain? Appointments approved. Going on to Room Tax Committee. Per an ordinance change earlier this year, we have a new committee starting the first of the year. We did a post similar to the Ethics Commission where we were looking for any civilians that wanted to serve on this. Kathy Dolch, and just to clarify, her last name is D-O-L-C-H, not a U, did show interest. She's a current owner of a small business in town, Pine Point Realty, and I mean, I know she does a lot of marketing. She's passionate about that through her business, so this part of the reason why I believe she's interested in this commission. She is also a resident of the city, lifelong resident, so that's why I'm recommending her appointment.
Holt, I will make a motion to approve Kathy Dolch to the Room Tax Committee for a term ending in December of 2025.
Joe Pack, second.
Any discussion? Not seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstain? Appointment approved. Moving on to 8H. I asked Mr. Tom Roser to come up. So this is a revised water hydrant use policy. This is something that Tom will talk to us more about.
There's just a couple wording issues on it, and a couple getting contractors to contact the water utility prior to using hydrants rather than after. So we, when we do approach a contractor, we have a leg to stand on. Also, the water utility conducting the training for any customers, it was stated the fire department would do the training on them. Again, operator notifying us prior to use, adding backflow preventers and or air gap be required. That's so we don't intake dirty water to the system, and it's a requirement by the DNR. Going the fixed rate for a quarterly tap on a hydrant goes from $80 to $40 per quarter. And failure to report usage or provide payment. It was just provide payment, but failure to report usage can be prosecuted. Those are the only changes we had on them.
Mr. Anderson?
I move approval of the revised water hydrant use policy.
Halt second.
Any discussion? Ms. Daniel?
Is this something that is more in line with, it should be in like an ordinance rather than just a policy? This is, because these are just guidelines. It's not, I mean, we're not putting into place an ordinance or anything like that with this. This is just, because, you know, failure to report usage or provide payment subject to revoking approval. So I'm just wondering what the process is. Is there a form they're supposed to fill out if they're going to do this? That's not outlined here. Is there, you know, just what I'm saying is this seems a little underwhelming as far as being enforceable.
Well, it's enforceable in the sense that you can't get at a hydrant unless you have permission. And if somebody...
But is there a formal permission process?
What, I'm sorry?
Is there a formal permission process?
That's what this is trying to create. They're trying to create a system whereby everybody knows what the policy is if you want to hook onto a hydrant for one purpose or another. And this is going to create it, and then the department's going to have to create the tools to do that. This is giving them permission to do that. Without this policy, nobody knows exactly what the standards are. It's really asking you if you, and I think it's a good policy in the sense it's going to be before the fact rather than after the fact. And that's always a better way to deal it from an enforcement perspective. That's why I like it. But there could obviously be more detail, but then you get into the minutia of some people may need it because of an emergency. Some people may need it to fill their swimming pool. I mean, I don't know that the council wants to get into that much minutia.
And that is one of the issues we do have as fire departments use them for filling pools and charge customers. This document will be is attached now, and it's on the city website. It's attached to all our water logs that we hand out to fire departments, contractors, whatnot.
Any other discussion? Not seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstain?
Aye.
Aye to oppose or abstain?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, with that, motion passes. Moving on to 8I, which is an update on the splash pad / skate park. We have discussed with Art Start to give them kind of an update. Pretty much where we're at on a couple of fronts is, one, we're waiting for outdoor rec plan, which should come to planning the first meeting in December. Once they approve it, it comes to this body for approval. Anything included in that outdoor rec plan would then be eligible through the DNR, the DNR to receive up to 50% grants. So the key is we have to have that rec plan in place and approved, adopted first for them to be qualified for that. On top of that, our Public Works Director, Randy, will talk a little bit more about a couple specific locations we're looking at, but we're still at the point of waiting for the outdoor rec plan, and then we'd be bringing in front of the body. This body a couple months ago did request us to start looking at contractors who could design it. I believe we had 2, if I'm not mistaken, respond, and was trying to solicit correct. Per the 2 fingers and back, I'm happy he did 2 versus 1. Besides that, we are looking for a third to be able to bid it out. With that, I would like Mr. Randy to go into any more details.
So we are currently working with...
If you could turn your mic on.
Pardon.
Yep, thank you.
We are currently working with 2 different firms, and I'm seeking a proposal from a third to generate a set of plans and some renderings that I can bring before the council, and then by looking at the renderings and some more specifics in the plans, you can guide me at what you would like to see for a splash pad and skate park. Right now, this is a loose depiction. Obviously, no longer is Pioneer Park going to be able to look like this concept here, but I can give you an idea. We are proposing to put a skate park and a splash pad in the existing infield of the current baseball diamond. This serves a number of strategic reasons. It's close to water and storm sewer and sanitary. It will free up some more space that I've been informed is used for our county fair. This road here would not exist, by the way. And then it also is in an area where we'd be free from tree debris, which can really clog up a splash pad and cause more maintenance and water use. But that's where I'm focusing right now. I'm more than interested to listen to what people say. I'm meeting with the skate park tomorrow, Wednesday, at Art Start to listen to what the kids think about that. Yes, ma'am.
I don't remember Pioneer Park being on the final list for the skate park.
It wasn't, so we're looking at all options because combining both projects will bring cost savings due to both of them involve a great deal of concrete. We haven't picked a location yet. We're still waiting for the outdoor rec plan, which I don't believe will go into detail of what I don't know if Ms. Michalowski or Felton remembers from the outdoor rec, if they recommended a site. But Pioneer was, for a couple of reasons, chosen as a high potential. One being the type of people that already go to Pioneer Park, meet the age demographic. Also, it sets us up for the future if we wanted to do a day camp or something. Now you have multiple activities there. But we still haven't picked a site. This is just hypothetical. We're looking at this one since we already own the land. Mr. Holt?
Yeah, has either ArtStart or Overwood been informed of this? Were they part of that discussion at all? So they're aware that this is possibility.
A possible location, correct.
Okay.
And I would believe of last Wednesday, Ms. Michalowski, I think, was in discussion with them as well. I don't know if that's a question or agreeing to Mr. Barnett.
I would say that whenever we do go about this, I don't know if any of these companies have any inkling on how to put a skate park together, as opposed to just throwing a bunch of cement on the ground and putting a couple of bumps on it. I would highly suggest that we as the city contract with WIT. He works with ArtStart. He's been with these kids since pretty much the start of all this talk. And he has worked with these kids a lot. He knows exactly how a skate park that's going to last for a very long time goes together. So I would highly suggest that whatever firm we actually decide to go through, that we make it mandatory that WIT is in on the process.
If I may add, Mr. Barnett, I am currently talking with, is it Miranda with ArtStart? We are putting together a team, including this Mr. Witt. He would be representing the city of Rhinelander. Our team then would work in conjunction with whatever firm we hire. But I am taking my lead, actually, from this. Is Witt his first name? Or?
Yeah, Witt's his first name. And that's good to hear. I thank you for letting us know that. That's
Sure.
good news.
And it was, it's their suggestion, actually, about Pioneer Park. I just wanted to add.
Ms. Daniel?
I just wanted on the record that Pioneer Park is already, like you brought up, they have the Oneida County Fair there, and it's pretty packed as it is. I know a skate park isn't the best place. I mean, you can't like cover it up and put something on top of it for the Oneida County Fair. What I'm most worried about is that the space is going to be a lot smaller than a lot of the other spaces that we've been looking at for the skate park. And what I'm afraid of is we're going to spend money on it. It's going to be too small. The kids aren't going to use it. It's going to fall into disrepair because it's going to be too small. It's not going to be what they're envisioning. I know there's several other possibilities that we had been looking at that would have been a lot bigger. So I guess I'm just surprised to hear that Pioneer Park is even in the discussion. So,
Mr. Holt?
Yeah, I agree with Ms. Daniel, and also would like to add, And it does sound like there's a good degree of this going on. I just want to make sure that spirit stays in there. That part of the use, I agree completely. If we wind up with a skate park just for cost cutting purposes, we end up with a skate park that isn't exactly what the potential users had in mind, not in the location they had in mind, then where we wind up with a loss of interest. And the other part of that is to make sure that the youth-led coalition of energy that has been pushing the skate park along not at any point feel disenfranchised or set aside, because that's also part of the sustainability. It's not just simply the X's and O's of designing it, where it's located and how much it costs, but that they felt like they were part of a process. They started that process, it wasn't taken away from them. Because I want to make sure that once we do have a skate park, that we still have that energy of the people that started that process and their spirit involved in it.
Ms. Mikulowski.
So I'm not sure if most of the council members know, but Art Start, when they first started with this Overett group to look at locations and to get the skate park up and running, they started looking for grant opportunities, and they actually received a grant from One Nation, One Project. And I'm the city representative for that program. Tom's also an artist member of the group. They're called map makers. It's a board of, I think, where there's like 12 of us. Overett is represented on that. And we've been meeting a few times now to discuss not only the skate park, but there's also a dementia aspect for seniors as part of this project too. It's a 2-year grant that we basically take projects and we incorporate it into making our community healthier, both not just physically but mentally as well. And this project fits perfect with that program. And so the Overett kids are very involved in this project, and nothing is set in stone yet. And I don't believe that Pioneer Park is much smaller than the top place that they did choose, which would cost probably more money because there's a whole lot more excavating and stuff that would need to occur. And it's kind of secluded on the edge of town versus in the middle. So I think Pioneer Park is, especially having the playground and everything else, is more apt to having kids already there, and would get, seen more by the traffic that goes past Pioneer Park. So I just want to assure you all that Overett is involved with this project. It's not something that we're just trying to push through or whatever. This is a project that's been going on, and it's on a national. This was a national cohort from One Nation, One Project. So there'll be more said as that program goes on, but I just wanted to let you know that.
Mr. Jopek.
To clarify, though, the Pioneer Park, that part of the discussion is fairly new, correct? I think what Mr. Holt is getting at is just to make sure that it doesn't seem like the city government's coming down and quashing what these students voiced, what voice they've found with this. And so we're not saying that the project itself hasn't had their voice, but the Pioneer Park, this is the first that we've heard of it. And so we're just trying to make sure that the students who have had the voice, who have shown up and given their speeches here, that's not lost in the process. Not to say that Pioneer Park's not a good spot or a good spot, whatever, just having an awareness of those students.
Ms. Daniel.
I just wanted to thank Carrie for that update. This is the first I've heard of it, so maybe if there's, and I'm surprised, like the paper hasn't done anything on it, because this is pretty good. This is great news, getting a grant from them to help with mental health, because that's a big thing right now. So how do we get this out there? Because there might be people who want to contribute, you know, knowing that that's the background behind it. So, and like Mr. Jopak said, you know, this kids came to us, and now it seems like there's another committee that took it over, which is great. But we're kind of left in the dust, you know, not really knowing what's going on with the project. So is there some way that we can be more informed? Maybe if they have meetings, can we see the minutes or something like that?
So first I go to Mr. Barnett, since you were first.
Eileen already said what I was going to say, so that's good.
Okay, Ms. Michalowski.
I just wanted to clarify, this is infant, like we just started. We literally just got the members. We've had one meeting. So you haven't heard of it because it's very new. And we have another meeting, I believe.
Wednesday.
Wednesday. So, and that's with the national group. So we'll know more then.
True.
It's a virtual one. And at Art Start too, right? Yeah.
True. So the two questions I have is for Mr. Barnett. One, just because I know you're very in touch with this topic. True to study, 7,000 square feet rings a bell for how much land or how much square footage they need. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it sounds about right. I think that was the minimum
To start, which
Yeah.
Pioneer, Mr.
I thought 12,000 was the ideal
ideal, but the minimum.
minimum.
But so the reference I was trying to make is Pioneer Park is much bigger than 11, 12, 20,000 square feet of unused land. The second part is what the location that Randy's proposing. Does that, since you are part of the Oneida County Fair, you know, you are the coordinator, would that location work, or a different section in that park be better use?
It would depend on, he had mentioned that a road was coming out. If it didn't change and all we did was put a skate park and a splash pad in the middle of the ball diamond, that would greatly impede any rides that would be coming in. But if we're taking a road away and opening up more land, then that would actually still work for us, I believe.
Just to clarify, the road you're talking about is a proposed road.
Yes, that's a conceptual road.
Yeah.
All we would be doing is eliminating that from any future plans.
Right.
But that's not a road that currently exists.
No, I get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the only other real progress on the skate park is the Rhinelander Community Foundation has agreed to listen to us at their January meeting to see if they want to open up an account to be the fundraising opportunity. So similar like what they did with the band shell, that would be their way of people to donate to get the tax credit, which would then, you know, if we decide to go that route with an agreement, that would then fund both or either one of these projects. One of the other thoughts of combining both projects is then they're not competing against each other for fundraising. It is then the city having one fundraising project versus them competing. That was another concept of why we want to join the two, wherever they may be. Mr. Jopak?
Well, regarding square footage, that, like, this is all conceptual. So in the future, we'll have an opportunity to hear like the specific amount of space that will be allocated for the skate park. Additionally, just a thought that came to my head, the pickleball courts, like on that map, it shows that the skate park would be pretty close to the pickleball courts.
Adjacent.
And I guess I just like that can be pretty heated. And just want to clarify, like, are they okay with the skate park being right next to their pickleball? I don't know. I'm not a pickleball. True. I know it doesn't matter, but we're here to listen to the people, right? And so just be aware that could be a conflict, which is...
Mr. Barnett, what's your concerns on pickleball?
Seeing as how the pickleball courts are city-owned, the pickleball group does not own said pickleball court. They play on it. And that's about all the ownership they have to it. So if the city decides to put something next to it, that is to the city's decision. It's not up to their decision. They'll have ample time to come in and voice their concerns and whatever those may be, and we can address them then. But at this point, they really have no say-so in if we put something there next to it or not.
I certainly understand that it is city land. I'm just wanting to make our, like, keep context of where this is going and what all parties will be involved or could be involved. And I understand they don't have ownership. However, as citizens, they'll still come and talk.
Oh,
So
sure.
Just raising awareness to that.
Yeah, and that's what the public, the hearings and all that would be for. So, I mean, they definitely have a voice for sure. They've used it very effectively in the past. I don't think that it should be that big of a concern if it's going next to the pickleball court or not.
So, Mr. Anderson?
In light of these other comments, do we need to be concerned about whoever is using the softball field now?
It's my understanding that this ball diamond is merely used for intramural or practices.
No, that it is used for high school softball, isn't it?
Not
No
my
longer,
knowledge.
since the fields are by the dome.
So pretty much the next three steps that could come all at the same time or at different paces on our radar would be, one, if we move forward with the foundation, let them be the avenue for collecting donations. Two, the outdoor rec plan to get that approved and adopted. And then three would be picking a consultant to design. That would be one or all three would be the next things coming to this body to move the project forward. To my knowledge, unless something comes out of left, no pun intended, left field, regarding the topics. So, okay, any other discussion or Mr. Jopek?
And again, they can move because it's there, but I just want to clarify that we've communicated with the high school about that, because working in the high school, I can, they played their last year.
We have not, just due to we are in such an early phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's just with Mr. Anderson raising that question, just kind of
True.
add to it.
Okay. Moving on to 8J. So this is, we had a special council meeting about a month and a half ago regarding a golf course. They requested some capital improvement options. They now have us hard bids, and we are looking to have some discussion, possible approval for multiple different things, from a waterfall to vinyl flooring in the clubhouse to a couple pieces of equipment. I think, Tara, we have someone waiting. Maybe you took a nap?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think we've got Kyle and Joe as well in the building. But yeah, thanks for having us. The golf course has had a good couple of years with positive cash flow. And with us coming in the spring, we've evaluated some equipment needs, working with Kyle and Joe, and wanted to bring those forward to the committee or the council. We've got some priorities on the right side as well on that first page. And we can go through each one if you like, or we can answer any questions.
Mr. Jopek?
Just for, I guess, to have it on record, can you explain the on-course waterfall and why that is essential to the capital improvement? You explained it to us in our budget meeting, but just for public record to make sure they understand why that's important.
Before we go any further, we've got to have our voice identify himself. I mean, I know who it is, but we have to have a public record. Who is speaking?
Sure. This is Justin Fox, Regional Manager for Oliphant Golf Management.
Thank you.
I can go ahead and explain the waterfall. Kyle, you may have better insight. You've been there a little bit longer, but I know it's an important piece of the golf course and something that people look forward to when playing the golf course. I know when it's not working, we do get a lot of comments on it, and Joe can speak to the amount of money that we put into it over the years. that has generally come out of operations and where the pump is at right now.
If,
The waterfall was donated by Bob Heck, and the Heck family. They do a lot of good things out at Northwood for us. So the waterfall is a big future to have it working at the golf course. I know it went out in, I want to say mid-June last year, so it wasn't running all year, and just got a lot of feedback from our members and tourists why it wasn't on.
Historically, the waterfall has it's not the best situation. When it was put in, it was done. It looks great, but the mechanicals were done as cheaply as possible. I know for a fact the motor and pump were used, a used purchase at the waterfall's original construction. It's an interior motor in an outdoor situation. When I took over in 1995, the first thing I did was put a roof over it, but even that was still not the best solution. The motor has failed catastrophically. It is not repairable, nor can they get parts to repair the motor or the pump due to its age. And then in the pricing shows you the replacement cost. One thing that I would like to note, again, the waterfall has nothing to do with the playing conditions of the golf course. It's more customer satisfaction. We have people getting wedding photos by it, things like that. But there is a cost in running it. I mean, it's $4,000 to $5,000 a year just for the electricity to operate it. So these are all things to consider.
so the two questions I have, and I don't really know out of the group, even from Wendy, who to ask these. What are we projected for profit this year for the golf course?
Yeah, we're projecting through the end of October a profit of $85,000, which is $60,000 ahead of budget.
So for the fiscal year 2022, you're projecting 85,000 over, just to make sure I heard you right.
Yeah, sorry, maybe I didn't explain that well. It would be $60,000 over budget.
Okay. Oh, so 85 profit for the fiscal year, operation year. And then
Yes, correct.
what are we sitting on for working cash in the golf course fund, to your knowledge?
Approximately $200,000.
What does it usually take you to operate? Like if you went down to 100,000, is that normal safe operations, or is that something you're going to be asking the city to upfront more money?
I know we have not had to ask for money through the last year with the positive cash flow. I think 100,000 would be close. I know our memberships will start selling here towards the new year, and that generally would help us carry cash flow. Kyle, does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So my personal recommendations would be to approve 1 to 4, which would be right around 85,000, which would be their profit from the golf course to reinvest. That way, incentivize them to be more profitable in the future to get more investment. That would be my personal recommendations. I don't know if council has any other questions or statements. Mr. Barnett?
I went out on the golf course during the warmer weather with Kyle there. We drove around the golf course quite a bit, and he showed me all sorts of things that are in disrepair and needs repair. And the waterfall, yeah, that looks ghostly and not very welcoming when it's not running. So yeah, the city obviously can't just keep throwing money on stuff, but the repairs that need to be done at the golf course are extensive, and they're needed, because the longer they go, the worse they're going to get. And I think that we really need to look into helping with that process, but that's later down the road. I will say that anything that we can put toward the golf course to to help with bringing it back to its natural state, I would be all in favor for. You said 85,000?
Well, if you take off number 5, it'd be $83,112.
I'm gonna go 85. Barnett, I'll make a motion to approve golf course capital expenditures, $85,000.
Can you go into detail what that actually is? It should be priority 1 to 4 per page 25 of the packet, if you choose.
So the 2023 capital request, I would make a motion to bring it to $85,000.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Mr. Jopek?
Does it need to be like explain 1 through 4?
I think that would make it very clear for everyone to know exactly what we're approving for expenditures. And I think Wendy would much appreciate it from a bookkeeping point of view.
All right, so
Well, just a minute. You're saying you're going to give them 85,000 for capital expenditures. I mean, if I look at that bid, if they got used stuff, they could get everything for 85. I don't know that you want to micromanage. Again, this is a policy decision to the point of you're telling them which ones. Now, you can say that we want to see 1 for 4 done, but I think Tom's statement that there's lots of things to be done and you only got 85,000 to do it, get her done. I mean, that's kind of how I'm hearing your motion. I don't think you want to say you have to spend this much on this one, this much on this one, this much on this one. Again, that's generally I try to stay out of those kind of discussions, but that would be a nightmare if you started saying how much they could spend on each one.
Would it help to not necessarily give the priorities, but like in accordance with their priority list? That way, that 85,000 goes towards the priority list and only the priority list, or is it just?
Yeah, I think you want to say that you want the priority items that you've discussed, the fountain, taken care of. But if they can get it done for 70,000, great. If they can get it done for 120 and they kick in their own money, that's okay too. You know, I mean, you're going to give them 85,000 is what I heard.
Just for everyone's clarified, is that was your original intent?
Yes, to take care of the priorities such as the on-course waterfall, the driving range picker, the rough mower, clubhouse floor, and turf blower. Priority is up to them because they know what the priority is out there, what they need the most. I'm saying give them the tools to get this stuff done.
Mr. Kelly, is that what you thought too in your second? Yeah. Okay, any other discussion? No. So with that, since it's a dollar amount, it's a roll call. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Kerry Mikulowski.
Aye.
Tom Kelly. Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
And Mr. Golf Course, make sure you tell the people who tell us we never invest in a company that we just invested $85,000. So thank you so much. Okay, moving on, I refer to Austin regarding badger book selections.
All right. My packet does not have page numbers, so if somebody wants to help me out and tell me where we're looking here.
Join the club. I have no clue in the packet anymore. Flooring.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, while we're finding that, I can kind of give background on exactly what Badger books are, and I do have a short video from the city of Wausau that they created because they just started using Badger books. So for those of you who don't vote early and come to the polls on election day, when you first go to the table, usually you'll be greeted by the same two poll workers that you usually see divided up by your district. And there's the two poll books that are in front of you where you sign one of them, the other poll worker signs the other one. It tells you exactly what ward you're in, if you voted absentee or not. This is an electronic system to do all of that. One of the biggest things that we find with time saving is it is the clerk's office responsibility to not only manually enter every voter registration that's done. So you can imagine for this election when there's 250 plus, that's going to take considerable amount of man hours. But even more so, it is statutorily required. So when you go to myvote.wi.gov, where you can check to see what your voting history has been, how you voted in the last election, the clerk's the one who has to manually input that. So I have 30 days from election day to manually input every single voter who cast a ballot and how they casted that ballot into the WIS vote system. So we're at roughly about 3,000 people, so it's going to take a very, very long time to do so. This is a program that the video will explain how it works, but it allows voters to come right up to a computer system, scan their ID, and eliminate the need for any of those paper poll books. They're also able to register to vote directly on that poll book as well. But if we want to play the video.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Bernardi, City Clerk for the City of Wausau. If you voted in the past, you probably remember signing your name in the poll book to record your voting participation. For the past few years, the state of Wisconsin has been moving away from paper poll books to a digital alternative called the Badger Book, an electronic voter participation recording system. But what is the Badger Book? How does it work? Should I be concerned about this change? In this video, we're going to give the full rundown on the Badger Book, so stay tuned. The Badger Book is an electronic poll book and was created by the state of Wisconsin for Wisconsin elections. It is used for checking in voters on election day, registering voters that choose to register at the polls, and to process all absentee ballots that people return by the deadline. So how does it work exactly, and how does it differ from a paper poll book? There will be at least 2 Badger books at a poll site on election day. The city clerk uses a USB drive to download voter information data from WisVote, which is Wisconsin's statewide voter database. Then they'll upload that data to each Badger book. The city clerk is the only person able to download and upload this voter data into the Badger books. And after they're done, they take the USB with them so the data can't be manipulated before, during, or after. The Badger books communicate with one another at the polling station via a secure router. It is never connected to the internet. On election day, poll workers using the Badger book have a unique username and password so entries can be tracked, and only authorized users can view voter data. When someone goes to vote, the poll worker will ask for their name and address and search for them in the database. They will ask to see a photo ID and select the correct voter. The Badger book can also scan Wisconsin driver's licenses, which speeds up the searching process. The Badger book will then tell the poll worker exactly which ballot the voter should receive, or give them a ticket with a voting number to retrieve their ballot from a different station. If someone wants to register to vote on election day, the Badger book will ask for the poll worker to input what type of ID they received, as well as select what type of proof of residence the voter provided. After the election, the city clerk repeats the same process, downloads the data from the Badger book, and uploads it to WisVote. As with the paper poll book, there is still reconciliation paperwork that is done to ensure everyone that voted was registered correctly. So why is the Badger book beneficial? Doing poll book registration electronically is very beneficial and will help the voting process in a few ways. First, it will speed up the voting process for those voting. The process of registering will take less time with searching names, checking IDs, and issuing correct ballots. It will also improve accuracy in registering people and getting them the correct ballot. Humans can make mistakes, especially when several hundred people are going through one polling location on an election day. So having the Badger book with its systematic digital interface will remove many points where errors could be made in the normal paper process, like accidentally taking a U.S. passport as a proof of residence or issuing the same voting number twice. So that's the Badger book. Fun fact, the Badger book has been in use in the state of Wisconsin since 2017, and it's just finally making its way to the city of Wausau. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to contact us at the clerk's office at 715-261-6620.
All right, well, my apologies. The guy who set up the packet somehow did not get this in the packet, so I'm handing it down right now. But as you can see from that video, it saves voters a ton of time. Both the city of Minocqua is the first, sorry, I'm out of breath from walking up the stairs. City of Minocqua is the first local municipality that's used it. They have rave reviews for it. City of Wausau as well. It's about 50 or 60 municipalities have been using it recently. I'm out of breath. But yeah, it saves a great amount of time for both the voters as well as the municipal clerks.
Mr. Anderson?
I move approval of the purchase of Badger Brook election system in the amount of $14,708.95.
Joe Peck, second.
Okay. And just to clarify, did you state where we're getting the funding from for this?
Yep, so the funding is going to be coming from the 2021 borrowing.
Okay, any other discussion? Mr.
Should
Barnett?
that be in the motion?
Doesn't have to be.
First of all, married life will do that to you. So you're saying by using these, it's going to make our elections and voting more secure, more easily counted, and it's going to make your guys' life a lot easier, correct?
Yeah, so as some of our great poll workers talked about earlier, a lot of time that is spent after the polls close at 8 o'clock is reconciling our numbers. So sometimes I know back in the April election, we had a situation where somebody got their ballot, was ready to vote, and then ended up just leaving the polling center and throwing their ballot away. So we had to sit there and try and reconcile and find out where this one ballot went to. This would allow us to eliminate all the other potential issues of where the wrong ballot was given to a voter. It wasn't recorded in the poll book because it is a step-by-step process that in order to get your ballot, you have to go through each of these steps, so there's no chance of human error, which when you have 3,000 people come through there and people have been in there since 6 a.m., it's just inevitable that there might be human error, and it would eliminate any possibilities of that continuing. And I do know with these, kind of in our day and age, we do have a lot of concern around voting transparency and everything. Just want to make clear that this is completely separate from your ballot. We will still have the paper ballot. It will still be fed into the same machines that we've been using. And it's something that after watching both the City of Wausau and De Pere kind of do a huge public information campaign, I think that'd be a great undertaking that the clerk's office could do to make sure people are ready to go and know what's this computer that they're going to be walking to when they go to the polling place. Another big positive is instead of having to go to your specific ward, you just walk into the polling place and you find the shortest line because everything's going to be included on every single one of those computers.
Oh, sounds great. Well, I appreciate everything our polling crew does during these elections. I know they're long, arduous nights, so anything that's going to make your lives a lot easier, I'm all for.
Ms. Daniel?
I'm seeing the total on this sheet that Austin just handed us is $2,372.95. Is that for one Badger book?
So both these quotes have to be purchased. With one of these, one of them is the server of it, and then one of them is the other 6.
You didn't tell me that it was 2 pages.
Yeah, there should be 2 quotes coming around. Both quotes need to be purchased. There is 6 Badger books that we are required to have based on the amount of voters that we have in our municipality. But then we do have one other Badger book that will act as the server one, but that one can be used as a typical Badger book in case the voter turnout is very high. Another thing that I've been talking with the poll workers and the county clerk about doing is having that server Badger book run as the voter registration table. So you have folks who, if they just have their ID and want to register to vote, it has a scanner connected to it. They scan their driver's license and it fills out 90% of the information that they need to register to vote. So instead of having a very long line, as you may have seen during election day, filling out those paper forms, they're able just to scan their ID and get 90% of that information taken care of right off the bat.
I have a question for you, Austin. So finding people that want to do this type of work for elections is getting tougher and tougher. Does this help relieve the need for as many poll workers?
Yeah, so if you look at our polling place right now, we have 8 aldermanic districts that kind of function as where each people vote. This would move that down to, at the very most, having 6 tables, but that does free up the ability for those poll workers to help out with the accessibility at the Hodag Dome, help out with voter registration, and kind of jump in where they need to. I do expect that we will see a reduction in the amount of poll workers we have before we get to the next presidential election. I've heard that from a few poll workers already, that they're probably going to be retiring before 2024 comes around. I also think this allows folks who might be a little intimidated when they go to the polling place and they see multiple binders and papers and people signing this and that and putting the voter tag number on the spindle. This would allow folks to be like, oh, this seems like something that I can do, and we'd hopefully have more volunteers doing so.
Okay, any other discussion? Yes. Okay, since it's a dollar amount, clerk, please take the roll call.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Kim McLowski.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to 8L. So we called it water utility, so this is part of a PFAS discussion as well as just water utility supply discussion. So Randy has been doing some research on this with the Department of Public Works, and we wanted to, per request, some update on it. About two and a half weeks ago, we did get some email correspondence from the state, which is now handling the money that was designated from the feds, from the Tammy Baldwin money, so to speak. They have laid out the guidelines of how we could apply to access that money, what it can be used for in the process, as well as a contact person. So part of it is, we're looking to have a discussion to see how you want us to move forward. The big still what if when it comes to PFAS for our area is how much poison is too much, how much PFAS is too much. It's in our current water supply, there are traces of mercury and lead and everything else. And since the state and the feds have not set a threshold of what's safe and not, that kind of makes us question, what are we treating to? Are we treating to 0 parts, 50, 100, what have you? So since that's kind of a gray zone right now, since we haven't had any direction from the state or feds, the only other option we really have is to bring another well online. So we're looking today to have the discussion of, do you want us to treat PFAS to a magical number that we don't know will be overkill or underkill based on future recommendations? Or do you want us to look at a new well at a new site, or both, or neither? So Randy will have a little bit more detail with that, from potential costs, potential locations, but we're just looking for direction of how you want us to move forward. Ms. Daniel?
There actually have been guidelines set forward. The Wisconsin DNR did recommend 70 parts per trillion based on EDC data from 2016. However, the EDC has changed that, and they are now recommending 0.0004 parts per trillion. That's their recommendation as a safe level.
Mr. Sorensen, I have a question for you. So just to clarify, and I have heard numbers all over the place, from the point to the 70 to 50. What group, is that the state legislature, what group is the one that actually enforces a number, or where should we take our cue from of what's the magical threshold, so to speak? Because the number changes, it's changing as more research is done and more knowledge on the topic is brought forward.
Safe water standards in the state of Wisconsin are established by the Department of Natural Resources, subject to approval by the Supervisory Committee of the state legislature. That level right now is really indeterminate, because the latest level that was approved by the committee was the 70 parts per trillion. And the DNR has suggested a lower rate, but the oversight committee has not approved that rate. The EPA came out with the rate as the alderman mentioned. But the EPA standard has not been approved by its oversight committee. So right now, if the standard in the state of Wisconsin right now would be 70 parts per trillion. How long that'll stay at that, I don't know. The DNR enforcement level, in the discussions we've had with them, they believe 20 parts is where it's going to be. At least from their perspective, they believe that we have a duty, or they have a duty, not we have a duty. They have a duty to inform people if it's at that level. I think the answer to the real question is, as it applies to this, is the attempt is to get it as low as you possibly can get it, and that's going to, in the city of Rhinelander, going to demand filtration. I mean, we don't have any water in northern Wisconsin that's going to meet the standard unless it's filtered at the level that is being suggested, because it's naturally appearing in our water table. I mean, it's there. PFAS exists, and it's not going away because it's a forever chemical. So it's a matter of what filtration we can use. But certainly you're going to need, well, you're going to need new wells. That's another whole story. But you're going to need filtration sometime, and that's what the state's grappling with right now. Yeah, and I got to be a little careful talking too much, because, as you know, the state of Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources has basically indicated enforcement against the city of Rhinelander, Oneida County, and the airport. So technically, we really shouldn't be discussing those questions at all, because that's an issue that's being handled legally. And we're in discussions with the department right now. So, and we've hired consultants that are working with us, and that's an ongoing matter, which I'm sure all of you know as council members.
Ms. Daniel?
To Mr. Sorensen's point, we need filtration. And I know we've been working with Dr. Tinjum from the UW, and the lysimeters I guess the new lysimeters are out at the airport now, is that correct?
Some of them, yes.
Correct. Some of them. So we should be getting some results from those shortly, is that correct?
Those will not be nearly as helpful as the ones we're going to get that are going to come from Econ, because those are, as soon as we get approval from the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, we will be doing sampling within the airport structure. None of Dr. Tinjum's are within the airport structure.
Right.
So a year from now, we're going to have some much better data, and that's part of the obligation we have with the state.
And a year from now, I mean, things might have changed again as far as recommended levels. You said they're naturally occurring. I just want it stated for the record that there's nothing natural about PFAS. They are not naturally occurring in nature. It's all man-made.
Well, the chemical is a natural chemical, but it doesn't appear naturally. No, it has to be artificially put into the surface. That's correct.
It's a synthetic.
It's created from chemicals that exist.
Well, everything's created from chemicals that exist. I mean, you can't just pull it out of the air. But what I'm saying is,
I mean,
the stuff that's in our water is not meant to be there. So yes, we need to find a way to filter it. We need to find a way to remedy the water system that is going to our residents and our constituents. Okay, that's my main concern, is making sure we are getting the money from the state that was promised to us, and that we're using it in the best way possible to make our drinking water safe. End of story. So it's been, 3 years now? It's been 3 years since we shut those two wells down in 2019. Almost exactly, if I'm remembering correctly. It was just after the November elections in 2019. So we've been going round and round and round about this. I just want to make sure that this doesn't fall by the wayside, that we're not just saying, yeah, we're working on it, but we're not seeing any results. So, because I know our citizens are concerned about it, I'm concerned about it. I know other alderpersons are concerned about it because we get asked about it a lot. So I just want everything above board, transparent, how we're using the 1.6 million that's supposed to be coming from the state, and that we're not delaying any of that.
Mr. Jopek?
Getting back to your question, your original question, Mr. Mayor, I do think that we should explore, as Mr. Sorensen said, filtration and necessary filtration to make sure as little as possible is in the existing water, but also, explore wells. I think all avenues need to be explored to adapt to this situation and to, be, I don't want to say proactive because it's already here, but, try to be proactive for the next couple of years. So as far as I'm concerned, I would see pushing for filtration regardless of what the DNR says. I'm not going to be mad in the long run if we overtreat it and we're ingesting no chemicals. I think that's going to be an okay thing in the long run. And so I guess my recommendation would be that we pursue both options however we can and do that, I don't want to say quickly, but diligently.
Mr. Anderson?
I guess I see the fact that this is brought up at this time as an effort to move it forward, but I'm not clear on what you're asking tonight. But I also have some other questions, one of which is, what is the level that we're getting out of our present wells? What level of PFAS?
So just to clarify, you're talking to 2 wells offline that we're testing quarterly?
No, the wells we're currently using.
So I don't have that data in front of me. I could definitely get Jody to send that to you.
Yeah.
We do test it quarterly, and nothing is of alarming or elevated rate.
Compared to what, though?
Compared to the initial 2. So even the initial 2 that were taken offline is just showing a trace well below any standard, but we're only pumping 3,000 gallons to cycle through our waste plant per the DNR's request. So those are not even showing PFAS, mainly because, now I'm not a professional, I'm just assuming there's no draw on the aquifer, so we're not getting any of it drawn to the point. But we are still doing quarterly tests, per recommended by the DNR.
But it seems from what we've heard before that there are a lot of problems with the fact that the filtration systems that we need haven't really been developed yet, or are in the process. But also a concern is if we drill a new well, what's the risk that that's going to have higher PFAS than the present wells we're using?
Okay, let me just bring the whole council up to date. We have looked at probably 60 different filtration potential systems over the last year and a half. We have looked at, and I'm sure that Randy, in the short time he's been here, has looked at, and he was going to present to you different well sites we've looked at. Before any well would be drilled, we'd obviously drill into the aquifer, test the water, and make sure that we're not, compounding the problem. You need to know that we've got test wells all over the city. We've been testing wells because we have to. We know, and we've analyzed, and Dr. Tingham has analyzed where the plume is that really is holding this PFAS. So we have a very good idea of what the aquifer in and around the city of Rhinelander is, and where the higher levels are and the lower levels are. You're correct that we've not come up with a perfect filtration system, but 3M has now come up with a fairly good system, the one that's being used over in the, this name is escaping me, eastern Wisconsin, the Marinette area and the Peshtigo area. That system is up and operating. Right now they have one in Woodbury, Minnesota, which is where the 3M plant is, which they put into effect. That's working. There's another system that we're looking at that Dane County is looking at. I will tell you that I probably spend, on behalf of the city of Rhinelander, 8 to 10 hours a month looking and talking with DNR and other people, probably a third of which you get billed for. So don't think that for any second PFAS is taking a second chair to anything. It's constantly in my realm. In fact, tonight while I've been sitting here, I've gotten 2 notices from other attorneys about PFAS. That's how up to date we are on what's going on. And we do have consultants that we've hired. They're going through our water system. We're identifying the plume, we're identifying the source. That's what the DNR has asked us to do. In the meantime, we shut the 2 wells down. And yes, Mayor, with the 2 wells as they sit, but the minute we start pumping out of them, one of the 2 wells did show levels of accelerated PFAS. And so we've got a lot of things to do yet, but I can tell you the good thing the people of Rhinelander should know is their water is probably safer than anywhere else in the state of Wisconsin, because we are doing the testing and we're doing it without anybody mandating on a much more, this is terrible English, on a more regular basis than anyone else is doing, and we're reporting those results so that you can be assured in Rhinelander you probably have safer water than 80 to 90% of the other cities in the state of Wisconsin, because right now nobody's doing the work that we're doing as far as making sure that our city wells are not free of, but at the lowest possible levels. We have none of our other wells have any other than negligible amounts of PFAS in them. So we know where the plume is, and we're certainly not going to drill a new well over where the plume is. So, I mean, I could go on for hours talking about this topic, but I just want you to know that this is not backseated by any stretch of the imagination.
Mr. Anderson?
I really appreciate hearing that. I think the comments from the other members here, though, based on the fact that it's been quite a while since we've heard anything about this. And I'd appreciate maybe more regular updates, or even just reminders of what's in progress.
True. And with that, Mr. Randy, if you want to do your presentation tonight.
Not much of a presentation, just more of an informative session. We currently have 5 wells. As everyone knows, 7 and 8, they are not operable. Oh. So, the city of Rhinelander relies on wells 4, 5, and 6. In our peak seasons in the summer, we have a demand around 2 million gallons a day. This decreases, and right about now, our demand hovers around 800,000 to 1 million gallons. During our peak time, our wells 4 and 5 and 6, they are at maximum capacity. We are straining the system to meet that demand. Because of this, and a couple other reasons I'm going to bring up, I concur with Mr. Jopek that we should move in a direction of trying to remediate wells 7 and 8 in the future, but also concentrate on a new well. We are looking at a well in the area along Highway 17. Couple reasons. One, we are projecting more business development along 17. And then to the southeast of this map, down around the conjunction of 17 and 8, we are projecting potential residential developments in the future. Right now, wells 7 and 8, 6, 4, and 5, they have to deliver, in order to get water over to, say, Menards, they have to travel the long distance, and the chemicals that we injected them have to stay within the water. They start to dissipate. So our big struggle is keeping the chemical levels, the additives, at a concentration that's still usable. Because the water has to travel such a long distance, this becomes a problem. So we are looking at the feasibility of a well up near where Menards is currently, or down by the junction of 17 and 8. our team has met with 2 different engineering firms. We are meeting with a third in 2 weeks. Then I will be putting out a request for proposals where we will start to do desktop studies and feasibility studies. Once we feel we have a good area of potential, we'll then start drilling. We'll start doing cores, and then we'll start drilling so we can then start collecting samples of water. The priority, obviously, is somewhere that has the lowest potential of being contaminated with PFAS. So, any questions? Yeah. Yes, sir.
What it would be the timetable for all this to be done with?
2024.
2024?
Yes.
And what would, putting in a new well wouldn't stop the remediation of the other wells?
I would hope that is not my plan. I would like to proceed with the remediation. I think even with wells 7 and 8 online, and we develop a 9th, we would then be at a comfortable level of producing water. So we have, right now, I am looking at 3 different plan sets for 3 new hotels. We are looking at a splash pad. We are projected to grow a bit more in population. So these things make me nervous when I calculate our current capabilities for producing water. So I would think it is not excessive by any means to have wells 7 and 8 running again and a new well number 9 on the east side of town. Yes, sir.
And I don't know if this is out of place, but as far as the splash pad goes, what are your concerns as we are right now with a splash pad being, say, splash pad shows up before another well shows up? What are your thoughts on that? Because that's during peak. That's adding to our volume that we're using, and we're already having well issues now.
Yes, sir. If I'm standing next to my staff, then I will act more concerned. Like I said, we produce about, in demand, 2 million gallons. We're looking at splash pads that will require about 80,000 a day. This seems manageable right now. I will be able to sleep at night during the summer, but I will wake up quickly if I hear that we have a failure in a well, because then this will tax our system currently, but I think we can sustain it for a time.
To give a little more clarification too on the question, a splash pad is probably 3 years out before it'd be actually operational. And there's roughly, well, there's more than roughly, but there's basic 2 concepts with a splash pad. One is a pass-through, where it's just like an open garden hose spigot. The other concept is more of a pool, where the water is recycled and chlorinated. So, I mean, if we do not get more water online, I wouldn't recommend a splash pad, or if we do, it'd be more of a pool type system where it's an initial fill earlier in the season versus a flow through type system. Ms. Mikulowski?
Is there a well 1, 2, and 3?
No, ma'am. There were at one time. Those
Okay.
wells have now been closed. Yes, I understand.
Just curious, because I was wondering where the heck they might be.
They just, with the new wells, they follow the sequential numbers. And
Same goes for dump trucks.
By policy, you can't rename a well, so it has to be the same. You can't retire it.
So pretty much, what would be the next step that you're coming to this body for when we have proposals for either treatment and or new well?
I will set out an RFP requesting proposals, and when I receive these, then I will approach the committee for direction, for guidance. I will lay out for you what I think is the Department of Public Works recommendation, but then I'll provide all the information that's been given to us, and we will make a decision together on what direction we should head.
So besides location and trying to get the chemical levels correct on the east side, was there any other factors why you chose kind of the Highway 17 corridor?
Yes, it's a shorter delivery system. If we have a well on that side, it's not as long of a run for the water to travel and get to these businesses, which is where we think the city is growing, along 17.
What about the diameter of the pipe? I know we run into issues where if you put a well where we have a 6-inch, 8-inch pipe, it can't handle the the flow, so to speak. I mean, does 17 support a new well from being a main artery point of view?
Yes, sir. If I understand correctly, you're wondering if we can accommodate any size pipe along 17?
My question gets to is if we put a well, let's say by Menards or South, are we having to repipe a mile of, water supply pipe to be able to handle the flow of a well, or is the pipe adequate?
It depends. Currently, the pipe is adequate. It's what, 8 inches down? 14. I beg your pardon. Which is plenty. If we are to construct a new well down by the junction of 17 and 8, we will have a considerable distance to cover with new installation. But as of right now, the existing structure, as Mr. Roser just stated, is plenty large. There's plenty of capacity in a 14-inch diameter pipe.
Is there any value of having a wellhead so close to a water tower, such as more up towards the Menards location? Because I'm very uneducated on water supply systems and pumping and that kind of
I suppose just logistically it's easier to get the water than in that tower. Another value, though, is there is some property up there that might be available. We, of course, have done no geological studies, no subterranean investigation in that area yet, but that is an area we're interested in, just for delivery purposes primarily.
Any other questions or statements or from council? Not seeing none. With that, moving on. Okay, moving on to 8M. So the initial thought with the new band shell was to treat it just like our pavilions, where a family member, a doctor, whoever could rent it out at a fee and have use of that pavilion. Part of the problem we're falling into is, even though we instated that for the first of the year with the new fee schedule, there has been a decent amount of groups and people who have come forward wanting to give us money to run an event for them, either based on they don't have the connections or physically can't do it. So we're looking for some directions of, if someone wanted to make a donation saying, hey, I want a band to play there for 4th of July, and they're willing to pay for it, what do we want the policy to be? Do we want the policy to be that we're willing to do it if staff has the capability? Do we want it where they have to find an outside group, maybe a nonprofit, maybe DRI, chamber, something like that, to put on said events? But we're looking for, when people come to us wanting events, how do we react to that? It's something relatively new, and I don't think we really had a precedent of this happening before with other pavilions we have. Well, Mr. Jopek looked to be first.
So, and this is with regards to not just private events, like somebody wants to have a wedding at the band shell. We're talking like, I want to have a big event for some shenanigans, Oktoberfest, whatever it be.
So the one currently on the table, someone wants to give us money for 4th of July to have a couple bands out there the day of, but they want nothing to do with it besides here's the check.
Who does that currently fall under? Like, who currently gets the bands or gets that kind of anything regarding that?
So, and that's part of the reason why we're having this discussion, is we never really had this in the past. So this is because of the facility being new and his interest, as well as the other one, the clamshell over by Triggs, isn't really owned by the city. So that's always been true. The Rhinelander Community Band kind of ran that, and we just maintained it like a park. So that would be the other question is, if we do set up a policy where we're willing to be the funnel that schedules this, that would be some burden on the clerk's office as well as our perks office. But we're looking for direction of how we want to move forward. Ms. Daniel?
Event planning is a whole career. I don't know that Austin particularly wants to be an event planner. My thought on it is the city owns the park, the city owns the band shelter, and it is a structure that we would rent out on just as any other business. I don't see a benefit to being an event planner for folks, you know, scheduling the bands and making sure one band is able to get on and the other one's able to get off, and when do they have to be and how do they load in and all that other stuff. The chamber is already set up to do events. I believe that this is something we could definitely partner with the chamber on. The chamber should actually be the entity that folks are going to when they're looking for direction on, you know, finding bands or, you know, working with them on scheduling, those sorts of things, because this is the kind of thing that they already do. So that would be my recommendation. I honestly don't think the city, as the city, should be being the event planner for private individuals.
Mr. Barnett was first.
Yeah, I have the same thoughts as Eileen does. I don't think the city should be in the business of putting on events or organizing them. We have enough on our plate as it is, as far as the city staff. To add in coordinating on top of it is, I think, just wrong to ask any of the staff members to take on that kind of stuff. Helping with events, sure. Providing certain things for events, sure. Actually coordinating and getting bands and hiring people, and that has no place in city business. I believe it belongs in the chamber's hands. So my recommendation would be to send them to the chamber.
Mr. Holt?
Yeah, I want to add my voice to that collective position. I agree with Ms. Daniel and Mr. Barnett, although I don't know why Austin wouldn't want to be an event planner.
I think his mic finally broke. Okay, yep, go ahead.
After planning my wedding, I no longer want to plan events.
Ooh. Any other discussion on said topic? Okay, not seeing none. Mr. Mark, how you doing today? Did he run? No, there he is. I thought you were hiding behind a podium for a second. I'm like, did he run away on us? Okay, no pressure, but lightning round. So we have
Starting
number
lightning
N.
round with me.
So we have letter N, which is the Hodag Park Bike Trail.
So this is the first and final pay request for the bike trail improvements in Hodag Park. It's about 2,500 feet of 8-foot wide asphalt bike path. This was pulverized. We added some base course to improve drainage and repaved and topsoil restoration out there. All work was done. It looks nice. We'll wait for grass to come up in the spring. But this is the final payment. All work has been completed for an amount of $73,822.71, which is about $4,000 under budget, and we would recommend payment in that amount.
What's the cost to the city?
That would be more a question for you. I think that's it's funded through CDBG. We're not administering that, so you would have a better beat on that.
Correct. Thank you. So I just want to point out this has no cost to the city taxpayers directly. This all came through a county grant. So I would entertain a motion to approve.
Daniel, make a motion to approve pay request one for Hodag Park Bike Path in the amount of $73,822.71.
Joe Peck second.
Okay, any discussion? Not seeing none. Clerk, take the roll call.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Tom Kelly. Aye. Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Karen Mikulowski.
Aye.
Motion approved. So Olson Lane change order for $421. Is this a record for being the smallest change order ever?
No, it's actually not.
Okay.
So this is just a little bit of riprap that we added. There's some storm sewer that we added on Olson Lane. There's an outfall on the east side of Olson Lane, south of Home Depot. We added some riprap at the end of that just to control erosion. So the amount for that change order to add that riprap is this tiny amount of $421.94.
Mr. Anderson?
I move approval of change order number 2 for Olson Lane in the amount of $421.94.
Hold second.
Any discussion? Not seeing none. Clerk, take the roll call.
David Holt,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Carrie McLowski,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Tom Kelly, Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to letter P, Olson Lane, 32,000. What we got?
So this is the second pay request for Olson Lane. All quantities are final on this, but we are holding 2.5% into the spring. The final payment on this, we did add some changes throughout this project. We went through that at the last council meeting. Some water main changes, some sanitary sewer changes. We actually ended up about $5,000 over budget on this project with all the changes added. This pay request covers the surface course of asphalt, pavement, some binder course of asphalt, and some odds and ends in there, but the requested amount is $32,153.77, which we recommend.
Daniel, make a motion to approve pay request number 2 for Olson Lane in the amount of $32,153.77.
Holt second.
Any discussion? Not seeing none. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Carrie McLowski,
Aye.
Tom Kelly, Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to Q, bills and claims of over $3 million.
I will make a motion to pay the bills in the amount of $3,187,606.45.
Barnett, second.
Ooh, any discussion? Not seeing any. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Carrie McLowski,
Aye.
David Holt, Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Motion passes. Moving on to 9, which would include what's in your packet and the historical museum report as well, which was handed out today.
Holt, I will make a motion to accept the monthly reports from departments as presented.
Daniel, second.
Any discussion? Not seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion approved. Would entertain if anyone would like to put us into closed session.
Jopek motion to go to closed session, if necessary, convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 19.85, subsection CG, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility in deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. A, discuss status of city administrator hiring process. B, discuss litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. C, adjourn closed session and return to open session.
Holt, I will second. Could I request a few minute recess?
Let's say 5 minutes.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, clerk, take the roll call.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Carrie McLowski,
Aye.
Tom Kelly,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
It is 8:08 and we're going to start in 5 minutes closed session. It is 8:56, and we are done with closed session with nothing to report. Moving on to future agenda items. Anything anyone would like to request on Mr. Anderson?
I would still like to see some honest discussion of this table arrangement.
Sure.
Do you? Apparently, there's an ordinance specifying how the layout's supposed to go.
Resolution, but correct. So, yeah, we could add it to our next council meeting. Anything else for future agenda items?
I would like at the next council meeting to get that presentation on resolutions, how resolutions work, what happens when resolutions aren't followed through, all that good stuff.
Okay, anything else for future agenda items? Not seeing none. It is 8:57, meeting adjourned.